I'm J.R. Church. Welcome to today's analysis of the news. Well, do you remember about a year ago a thing called Real ID? It's a national identification card, and it was supposed to have been implemented by May 11th, 2008. On state driver's licenses, identification cards were not to be accepted for federal purposes unless the U.S. Department of Homeland Security determined that a state was compliant with the Real ID, or a state had been approved for an extension by the Secretary of the DHS. Well, all 56 U.S. jurisdictions had received an initial extension from the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. The initial extension runs out next December 31st, 2009. So sometime within this year, all of the states in the United States are supposed to put out a new national identification card for all citizens of the U.S. Yes, they're getting closer and closer to the mark of the beast. The DHS estimates the cost for states to implement the Real ID at around $3.9 billion. Yes, just throw it away. You know, we don't need that. And as a matter of fact, remember that $700 and something billion worth of stimulus package that our dear Republican President George Bush pushed through Congress last October, September, October? Well, when it all was pushed through, it didn't have a $700 billion limit on it. It was open-ended. And so far, the international bankers and Wall Street banking houses have taken over $9.7 trillion through that one piece of legislation. Talk about broke. Dear friend, we'll never get that paid off, I can tell you. Here's an interesting article. Following the 9/11 attacks, President Obama's nominee for a top intelligence post advocated that to effectively combat terrorism, the U.S. government should implement a national identification system, this Real ID. So he said, we could better know who is who. In testimony before the 9/11 Commission, Charles, called Chas Freeman, the U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War, also recommended conducting the war on terrorism primarily as a law enforcement effort rather than a war. Freeman is slated to head the U.S. National Intelligence Council, or NIC, a critical component of the U.S. intelligence apparatus. The NIC serves as the Center for Midterm and Long-Term Strategic Thinking with the American intelligence community. It provides intelligence briefs for Obama and key U.S. agencies and produces reports that help determine American policy on critical issues such as Iran's nuclear program. Well, Freeman has recently come under attack for his documented ties for many years to foreign governments, including receiving funds from the Saudi Arabian government and his service on the advisory board of a Chinese government-owned oil company, widely seen as conducting business deals meant to expand the communist nation's influence worldwide. Since 2004, Mr. Freeman has been on the International Advisory Board of the China National Offshore Oil Corporation. In 2006, while he was on the board, they signed a memorandum of understanding with the state-owned National Iranian Oil Company to develop Iran's North Pars gas field, and a contract with Tehran reportedly worth $16 billion. Well, Mr. Freeman has a long history of involvement with China. He's also co-founder of the U.S.-China Policy Foundation, which, according to its website, promotes greater understanding between American and Chinese policymakers, researchers, and government officials. Among the missions of the foundation is to organize the development of China studies in U.S. institutions of higher education. Freeman has been widely quoted in the media as supporting Chinese policies and even penned a piece praising Communist Chinese leader Mao Zedong. Freeman also served as president of the Middle East Policy Council, a Washington-based Saudi-backed nonprofit that receives tens of thousands of dollars a year from the bin Laden family and hundreds of thousands more from other Saudi donors. As chairman of the Projects International Incorporated, a company that develops worldwide business deals, Mr. Freeman declared in an Associated Press interview just after the 9/11 attacks that he was still, quote, discussing proposals with the bin Laden group, and he said that won't change, end of quote. He also said that bin Laden remains, quote, a very honorable name in the Saudi kingdom. In another interview, September 28, 2001, Mr. Freeman told the Wall Street Journal that he spoke at the time to two of Osama bin Laden's brothers following the mega-terrorist attacks. He said that they told him that our FBI had been remarkably sensitive, tactful, and protective of the family during the current crisis. Mr. Freeman made recent comments that are perceived as heavily critical to Israel. He told the Washington Institute of Foreign Affairs in 2007, just a little over a year ago, that Israeli policy is generating anti-American sentiment while the Jewish state no longer even pretends to seek peace with the Palestinians. And he said, quote, American identification with Israeli policy has also become total. Those in the region and beyond it who detest Israeli behavior, which is to say almost everyone, now naturally extend their loathing to Americans, he claimed. Freeman lauded the Hamas as, quote, the only democratically elected government in the Arab world, and claimed that the terrorist group, quote, is showing that we offer it nothing but unreasoning hostility and condemnation, and he said it will only stiffen its position and seek allies among our enemies. In both cases, he said, we forfeit our influence for no gain. His counsel joined with the California-based Arab World and Islamic Resources in selling to U.S. schools the, quote, Arab World Studies Notebook. It was found that the book described Jerusalem as unequivocally Arab, characterized Jewish residents in the city as settlement, labeled the question of Jewish lobbying against the whole question of defining American interests and concerns, and suggested that the Quran synthesizes and perfects earlier revelations. Yes, Mr. Freeman is a strident critic of Israel and a textbook case of the old line Arabism that afflicted American diplomacy at the time the State of Israel was born. Mr. Freeman, he's one of Obama's inner circle, and he hates Israel. We've got problems in Washington, D.C. Well, folks, we've had problems here at Prophecy in the News on our website for the last few days. As I prepare this program, we're still not up and going. We're trying to get something up so that when you click onto our website, you'll at least be able to catch our daily webcast. But I don't know what happened. I'm anxious to get to the bottom of it to find out just what has happened to our website. It's been 2 days now, and we're not up and going. It's, you click onto the website and you get nothing. So hopefully when you click and see this broadcast, you'll at least understand that we've been working night and day to try to get our website back up and going again. So keep praying for us and keep looking up. I'm J.R. Church. We'll see you again Monday with our analysis of the news.